Legislative law, the fiscal committees of the state legislature are authorized to hold hearings on the executive budget proposal. This hearing this afternoon will be limited to a discussion of workforce development. So we're going to go through the list as it exists here, and if someone's not here, we'll just go on to the next witness so we can move this along. If someone is overly burdened by the fact that we started late and you want to submit your testimony, you may do that as well. The first speaker is New York State Department of Civil Service, Jerry Boone, Commissioner. And on deck is New York State Governor's Office of Employee Relations, Michael Volfort, Interim Director. Whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chairman DeFrancisco, Chairman Farrell, and distinguished members of the Senate Finance and Assembly Ways and Means Committees. I am Jerry Boone, Commissioner of the Department of Civil Service. With me is Michael Volforte, Interim Director of the Governor's Office of Employee Relations, also known as GOER. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you this afternoon to comment on the Governor's 2015-16 budget as it relates to the department, as well as to highlight some of our key accomplishments over this past year. During Governor Cuomo's first term, substantial progress was made in transforming state government to improve the efficiency and cost-effectiveness of state services. A key initiative was adoption of a shared services model to standardize human resource and finance transactions in the state. With the centralization of routine HR transactions, agencies will be better positioned to focus on their core missions, and the state as a whole can take a more strategic approach to merit system and HR administration. To support the change in role of agency HR leaders, the department and GOER jointly developed and delivered a professional development program for agency HR directors and leaders focusing on strategic human resources. We're building up on that success of that program by providing new tools, best practices, and additional training for HR professionals. The department also increased training opportunities for local civil service jurisdictions across the state, ranging from refresher training for more experienced HR and civil service professionals to the annual Civil Service Institute. This is a comprehensive 3-week training program which prepares less experienced local administrators for their independent responsibilities in administering the civil service law. The department is also responsible for ensuring that agencies have the necessary talent to fulfill their core missions. With 80+% of the state's workforce in the competitive class, state agencies and localities rely upon the Department of Civil Service to administer examinations to ensure they can meet their staffing needs. Over the past year, the department administered nearly 4,500 examinations, testing over 140,000 applicants for state and local government titles. Our testing programs integrated tried and true testing methods with new, more innovative testing paradigms to enhance efficiencies while also ensuring we comport with the merit and fitness requirements. For example, to more timely attract a cadre of capable and diverse college graduates to public service, the department piloted a new selection tool, the Professional Career Opportunities Examination. We also refer to it as the PCO. By including numerous job titles throughout the state in a single written examination, the PCO is designed to ensure that agencies have a ready pool of talent available to meet their hiring needs. The PCO has laid the groundwork for broader use of competency-based testing, allowing us to include several related occupational areas in a single examination in the future. In addition, in support of local civil service, for the first time, the department administered examinations for the statewide Director of Facilities titles to be used by all local school districts. This new approach was required under legislation that specifically directed the department, rather than the local governments, to classify these job titles and hold an examination for the titles. Increasing diversity in the state workforce is another important responsibility the department shares with its client agencies. Our outreach efforts, which highlight opportunities for entry into state service, complement the more targeted recruitment efforts of state agencies seeking specific needs and skill sets for their operations. Over the past year, the department participated in over 70 outreach efforts to underrepresented populations, including most recently the New York State Association of Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, and Asian Legislators Caucus Conference, and upcoming in March, the Somos El Futuro's Spring Conference. The department also focused on veterans unemployment, successfully launching 2 new online recruitment portals this past year. One portal facilitates selection of disabled candidates, including disabled veterans, and the other connects veterans with temporary employment opportunities in state government. Finally, the department implemented a constitutional change that provides additional credits to eligible disabled veterans seeking a civil service appointment or promotion. In the health benefits area, the department continues to administer the New York State Health Insurance Program, also referred to as NYSHIP. It's one of the largest public employer health insurance programs in the nation, covering over 1.2 million state and local government employees, retirees, and their families. NYSHIP offers a number of health benefit programs, the largest of which is the Empire Plan. While specific benefits and associated employee costs are negotiated by GOER, the Department of Civil Service is responsible for ensuring coverage is provided at the lowest possible cost to the state and other employers. Since the department's conversion of the Empire Plan to self-funding in January 2014, I'm pleased to report that approximately $343 million in plan savings have been realized, benefiting both the state and participating local governments. In addition, the Empire Plan has experienced lower rates of premium growth, translating to cost savings for plan participants and New York's taxpayers. The department also continues to collaborate with the Department of Health to improve coordination of healthcare purchasing, capitalizing on best practices and efficiencies to improve healthcare and lower costs. Recognizing the benefits of preventive services, the department expanded the Empire Plan access to cover vaccines for the flu, pneumonia, shingles, and meningitis at participating pharmacies. Looking to the year ahead, the department plans a follow-up to our 2009 eligibility audit of NYSHIP membership to ensure that ineligible dependents do not claim or receive benefits. As part of the audit, as in the prior audit, we're seeking an amnesty period to be authorized by statute. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you this afternoon, and I am happy to answer any questions the committee may have.
Senator Sabino has one question.
Don't start the clock yet. Good to see you again.
Good to see you,
Chair.
Senator.
I do have just a couple of questions, and you could probably imagine what they are because I seem to ask them every year. So, in the past several years now, we've seen a hard hiring freeze and early retirement, and I know in your testimony you talked about how you have you administered 4,500 exams in the past year to 140,000 individuals. How many of those people have we actually added to the state workforce?
How many were hired into the state workforce?
If you know.
Yes, I can answer that for you. Approximately 36,000 internal, well, transfers, or I should say, hiring-related decisions were made. 26,000 of that 36,000 internal transfers, promotions. So that leaves roughly 10,000 of new entrants who were hired into the workforce.
Okay. And the reason I bring this up every year is because we know that we have an aging workforce. I'm just going to give you a couple of numbers. The average age of a state worker right now is 48. And while that's not that old, you know, normally you'd have, right, he's laughing. Okay, he's obviously under 48. 47% of the state's workforce is over age 50. 28% of the state workforce is over 55. In the next 5 years, fully almost 30,000 people will be 55 or over with 30 years of service. That means we're going to see a tremendous exodus of state workers. And so what I've been lamenting about for the past several years is the issue of succession planning in these agencies. We're already seeing the effects of what happens when you don't have sufficient staff, whether it's in the Department of Labor or in the Department of Health or in any state agency. And so while I bring this up every year, I'm hoping that someday one of you is going to come forward with a plan on succession planning to grow the state workforce again to appropriate levels. And so that we don't have this we are one early retirement away from a disaster in this. And so we need to plan for the future. So what, if anything, can you do working with the agencies to begin that process?
Well, strategic succession planning is one of our strategic focuses. It is a decentralized process currently, which means each agency is responsible for its own succession plan and transfer of knowledge practices. But through the partnership and collaboration of the Department of Civil Service and GOER, we have worked to create a coordinated approach to succession planning. And that's something that will be one of our continuing priority areas of focus in this year.
I certainly hope that next year I'm not asking you the same questions, but it's nice to see.
That it?
Oh, we've been joined, we have on our side Mr. Abate and Mr. Kavanaugh. Mr. Abate to ask a few questions.
And we've been joined by Senator Golden.
Sure, Commissioner, let me just ask you, in the executive budget, I noticed that the budget recommends that the Office of Information Technology do a term or temporary appointments of up to 300 people can be appointed. And also in the budget, it authorizes the Department of Health to use the term temporary appointments of another 300 people to be appointed. Was this a recommendation from your office at Civil Service?
We've certainly participated in the IT request for insourcing of 300 positions. There was a prior program, which I'm sure you're all aware of. We refer to it as Chapter 500. And this program enabled us to acquire difficult to attain talent, to attract it to the workforce on a sufficiently elongated basis that they would then have the opportunity, those coming in from the outside, to participate in civil service exams and add to our talent base on an ongoing basis, participate in the for competitive-based positions. And interestingly, it also served to be an employee mobility program because it enabled existing employees within the workforce already, competitive base, to realign into these opportunities. So it provided development opportunities to move people into to new areas. But it's a retention measure, it's an attraction measure. It's been successful. We're asking for another round for those 300 positions.
And in the Department of Health, were you also consulted on that?
I'm aware of the Department of Health proposal that you make reference to put forth 300 positions, I believe, for the Medicaid takeover.
It just seems contrary to everything that, civil service is supposed to be about. And then when we go back to it, when you say the Office of Technology, we've been hearing this for a number of years when technology was new and all. I think by now the workforce, especially in New York State, I think we have enough qualified people. Maybe 5, 6, even 8 years ago, we didn't have enough people, in the workforce to do that. I don't see the need to constantly go out. Technology is becoming almost everyday occurrences. So, to look back at that, I just think it's, chipping away each year. Another agency, there's also shared services with the Thruway Authority. the Transportation Authority and the Thruway Authority. It just seems like it's chipping away, and I hope you would, as the chairman, really look into that to see that we maintain, a strong civil service system,
Well-
other than what the executive might want to do.
Well, let me offer some context to that, because managing a workforce and staffing a workforce is a mix of strategies. So our currently constituted workforce of 150,000 employees, the executive control portion of the workforce, we have, again, competitive-based jobs, that particular classification, if you will, of civil service, is some 80%, 120,000 employees. That's been the case roughly for the last 15-plus years. That has not eroded. So on a base of 150,000 employees, to acquire or make the request to acquire 300, we do not think is an extreme request. Also, the thing about technology is that there's a portion of it, we know from our own life experiences, from the benefit, is moving so rapidly that to acquire that talent, by the time you develop an exam, it will be outmoded relative to those particular skills. So is meant to complement the 4,000 plus competitive-based employees that we have in ITS, or around 4,000, to introduce an additional agility measure, if you will, to compete for that high in-demand talent. So it's a small portion of it. With regard to temporary workers, again, an agency, if it's taken on a new mission, sometimes decide it's better served to engage temporary or employees on a temporary basis until it gains a little experience to sort out what its staffing needs will be long-term, especially when it's taken on new responsibilities. So we use a range of measures. We think these are modest in the scheme of things, quite frankly, but to manage our workforce so that it has the agility to provide the level of services that we need. Our competitive-based workforce does a great job. It is not, in any way an adverse reflection. It's just given us, as an organization, a little bit more agility to go after talent. And frankly, it provides then a basis to perhaps Velcro some of those people and opportunities to take competitive-based exams and become part of that workforce.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Golden? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We look so chipper this late in the afternoon. This is good. Thank you for being here, sir. I have three questions. If a person's on the eligibility list for a title such as an IT Specialist 4, and that person is selected from an IT Specialist 4 list for one of these term appointments, isn't that appointment merely a way of appointing agency to getting around the rule of three?
You're referring to a specific position?
Correct.
Yeah,
Someone who is not otherwise reachable?
Well, if I follow you, I think you're referring to one of the positions that was encompassed by the Chapter 500 legislation. Mm-hmm. Again, now it was targeted to rapidly acquire and add to the talent base skills that we, otherwise did not have enough of. So it's a limited measure. It was in place for 5 years. And again, the intent behind it was to bring people in rapidly in a rapidly evolving area and to keep them long enough to then be able to take a civil service exam.
So we're not doing that anymore?
If they wish to receive a permanent appointment. And we just held our major civil service IT exam back in December.
If a person is selected for the term appointment for the eligibility list and declines that position, is that person removed from that list?
I had a little trouble hearing you, I'm sorry.
If the person is selected for the term appointment from an eligibility list and he declines or she declines that position, is that person removed from the eligibility list?
Are they removed from the list?
Yes. Or
No.
do they go to the bottom of the list? Or
No,
do they go
no,
back
the
to
list,
ranking?
unless, under the rule of three, unless and until the appointment is made, that eligible individual would continue to be eligible to compete for that or any other similar opportunity.
Thank you. The DOH term appointments, you got 500 term appointments. Do we have a better way of putting a target as how much that's going to cost, what it's going to cost? Do we have these term appointments already in place, or are these term appointments something that may be needed?
Well, that one I'm not intimate with, so
Department of
to
Health
answer your
is the
specific
500.
question, I'd have to get back to you.
They have 500 term appointments. They may need expertise in the individuals implementing the new state health insurance programs and their initiatives and their mandates. Does the DOH currently need that help? Are those positions already assigned, or is there a flow chart for these 500 positions?
If I understand correctly, I mean, it provides additional capacity that
Correct.
they made a forecasting judgment that they would need. How it eventuates, remains to be seen.
Okay, so there's no plan on that. It's just the 500 employees you're allocating for those 500 employees, but we don't know if we're going to use them and where we're going to use them and how we're going to use them.
I'm just having trouble hearing you, I'm sorry.
Those 500 term appointments, they're not assigned those 500 term appointments yet, correct?
At this time.
Correct, so there are
I
500 term
I-
appointments that you can make at some point down the road, and you will have up to 500 appointments to make if you choose to do so.
That's my understanding of the request.
I would imagine that the chairman would want a better breakdown of how you plan to use those 500 and the appropriate costs of the 500 appointed. I would definitely like to see it from the civil service chair. If you can, we'd like to get more information on that.
Well, they certainly all would have, we have a classification process that reviews when an agency is ready to actually make appointments. Again, if we're assuming those are within the civil service competitive system as opposed to outside of that process. So if we're talking about...
This is outside that process. These are term appointments outside that process.
I'm not specifically familiar with these 500, so I can't tell you whether I can be happy to find out for you.
Thank you. We'd like to know ourselves. Night shift, the health budget and the governor, and you just talked about night shift a few minutes ago. The Medicaid prescription formula is about to change. And if that proposal becomes law, is night shift going to follow suit with this prescription formulary?
We will evaluate the circumstance and see if that makes sense.
Well, I don't like the Medicaid prescription formulary, so I'm definitely not going to like that if that's changed the way it's laid out now in the budget. I don't know how my colleagues here on the dais are, but if night shift were to follow that prescription formulary, it would definitely impact, have big impacts in the city of New York.
Well, again, we would evaluate it and see, but I mean, we've taken it. What we tried to do in the night shift program is take advantage of any change, whether federal or otherwise.
These are the governor's proposals.
Right, but that provides savings. And the other thing we've done is that, in earnest over the last 2 years, is to heighten our collaboration with the Department of Health to make sure that we are taking advantage of the Medicaid changes that would be appropriate to incorporate into night shift to benefit our enrollees.
Last question, Mr. Chairman, and thank you again for being here, gentlemen. We see what's going on with the governor, the mayor of the city of New York with these contracts, and there's no reserve funds for these contracts. Have you prepared for any type of, when your contracts go forward, do you have a reserve fund? Are you prepared for the contracts coming up?
I would respectfully defer that to my colleague, if I may, who was in charge of the collective bargaining for the governor.
Senator, I do not believe the state has a strict reserve fund for future collective bargaining agreements.
So how are you looking at these reserve funds? How are you looking when no reserve funds, so how are you planning to pay on the contracts, future contracts coming up?
As
the back.
those negotiations proceed, I think we're going to be looking at savings within the negotiations to help fund those. But those are, and that's typical of all of our negotiations.
Thank you.
Got any? No? Anyone else? Thank you very much. I appreciate your testimony. You're free. You're free.
Thank you.
We will be later on. Next speaker is Michael N. Balfour. Oh, you're with me together. Isn't that nice?
It's not often I can sneak into a room.
Well, good. You snuck into the room and you get out of the room without much damage. So you are also free. 2 o'clock, CSEA Fran.
Yes, he does.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
know. Okay. 2 separate slots here. Then you're not free. Go right ahead.
We gave you a chance to run, but you
Yeah,
didn't take it.
and I'm not fast, apparently, either, but thank you for the opportunity. Chairman DeFrancisco, Chairman Farrell, and honorable members of the Assembly and Senate, I'm Michael Valforti, and I serve as the interim director of the Governor's Office of Employer Relations, GOER. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you to address Governor Cuomo's executive budget for fiscal year 2015-2016 as it relates to GOER. Before we look at next year, let me talk a little about what we've been doing. During the past year, we've reached collective bargaining agreements with unions that represent graduate students employed by the State University of New York, employees within the Division of Housing and Community Renewal, and supervisory employees with the Division of State Police. These agreements continue to build on the vision that the state has established over the last 4 years: responsible, controlled wage growth, rebalanced health insurance premium contributions, and sensible changes in employee health plan design. Currently, we've completed negotiations for over 97% of the state workforce and continue to move forward with the goal of reaching an agreement for all employees in the coming year. Throughout the past year, we strengthened our collaboration with the Department of Civil Service, our strategic partner in human resources management. The goal is that we speak with a unified voice and take action with a unified strategy in an attempt to harmonize what has heretofore been a disjointed approach to human resources management. During last year's testimony, we highlighted our plan to train agency human resource managers to provide them with the tools to be a strategic resource within their own agency and in areas such as workforce planning, performance management, employee engagement, and talent development. This training was also designed to develop these individuals into strategic partners for GOER and civil service as we continue to move the state forward in the process of developing and managing the workforce in a strategic manner. I'm pleased to inform you that the human resource managers successfully completed the training and have begun putting the lessons and skills learned to good use. We are committed to continuing the professional development of these employees and have established additional professional development courses for them to attend over the coming year. Over the past year, employees of GOER and the labor management committees continue their high-quality service to the workforce. Thousands of employees have taken advantage of the state's 3 pre-tax benefits programs: the Healthcare Spending Account, the Dependent Care Advantage Account, and Nice Ride, our pre-tax transportation benefit program that permits employees to use before-tax monies to purchase travel on mass transit. Our employees also continued valuable support services for the workforce in terms of improving their personal and professional lives through our website, webinars, and in-person events, fostering employee health through wellness programs, hosting informational seminars to assist employees to plan for retirement, providing support for the various child care centers that are located on New York State work sites, and providing resource and referral services through the Employee Assistance Program for employees who are suffering personally. This past year, for the first time, we successfully expanded our enterprise-wide training programs for employees, supervisors, and managers with a total of 9 comprehensive and consistent training programs. These programs include internal controls, privacy of health information, and cybersecurity training, which are designed to educate the workforce about the need to protect the state's and public's information technology, health information, and other assets. Workplace violence prevention and right to know training, programs designed to provide basic safety information to employees and protect them in the work environment, equal employment opportunity and sexual harassment prevention training, which are programs designed to educate our employees about their rights to a discrimination-free workplace and procedures for filing complaints of discrimination, reasonable accommodation for employees and reasonable accommodation for religious observances for employees, which are programs designed to make sure that supervisors and managers are aware of the rights of employees to receive such accommodations and the procedures that need to be followed to ensure that those rights are protected. Language access and reasonable accommodation for members of the public training, programs designed to eliminate barriers to the access of governmental services by members of the public. Additional training was offered in many areas, such as job skills and professional development, for a wide array of represented and unrepresented employees. These programs demonstrate not only the governor's vision of inclusiveness in the workplace and dedication to eradicating discrimination, but a strong reminder to the public at large that our employees will serve all members of the public competently and completely. Quickly, with respect to the year ahead, my office is busy preparing for negotiations for successor agreements for 2 collective bargaining agreements that will expire later this year, in addition to planning for contract negotiations contracts that will expire next year. There are no layoffs proposed under Governor Cuomo's fiscal year 2015-2016 budget. Moreover, his budget actually anticipates growth in the state workforce by approximately 846 people by the end of the next fiscal year. The governor's budget, in a fiscally responsible manner, restores pay parity for management confidential employees through the restoration of previously withheld salary increases in base compensation beginning in July of this year. Once again, this year, we will build on the gains we made last year and continue to increase the capacity and skills of the state workforce to deliver the highest quality services to the public. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you and answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Senator Savino.
Thank you, Senator DeFrancisco. Thank you for your testimony. So I just want to clarify again. We have several state contracts that are set to expire within the next year, but there's no labor reserves in this budget. So let's assume, you know, all the planets are in alignment and everybody's happy with each other and you can sit down and bang out a contract with, I don't know, some percentage increases. How are we going to pay for it if we don't budget for it, if we don't even have a labor reserve for it?
As part of our deliberations in terms of ultimately negotiating a contract, the cost will undoubtedly be a factor. And that's the way that it's been consistently handled for, as far as I'm aware, for the entirety of my career, which goes back approximately 18 years.
So in the past, there was never a labor reserve set aside for the potential settlement of labor contracts?
There may have been amounts noted in the budget and budget documents noting patterns of already agreed upon agreements and perhaps their effect on those patterns as if they're extended to other employees. But I'd have to go back and check and consult with the Division of Budget, but I'm not specifically aware of a specific labor reserve fund.
Would it be possible for the state to absorb the costs of contract settlements if they were to come about sooner rather than anticipated?
It would depend on the settlement.
Well, since you'd be at the table on the settlement, you'd have a lot to say about that. I just find it odd that there's no way to identify that there's a, whether we want to call it a rainy day fund or not, just minimally a labor reserve fund for the likelihood of settlement of contracts. But as you said, you don't believe there is one. Well, I'll accept your word at that point. I want to move to the issue of management confidential pay raises, which have been a subject of much consternation traditionally. I'm sure you said you've been here 18 years. Previously, the MCs could always depend upon whatever the same percentage increase was negotiated with the bargaining unit members. There has been a disruption in that pattern in the past couple of years. We've attempted to correct it legislatively. I think Senator DeFrancisco passed and sponsored legislation to address that issue. It's been vetoed, but the MCs, their concern, of course, is money that's owed to them and the future of their potential raises. It is actually probably makes more sense now to stay in the bargaining unit than it is to become a manager. And that also is going to affect the future of the state's workforce. We need to retain our best and our brightest, both at the workforce level and at the managerial level, and I'm afraid that we're not doing that. So let's assume PEF, and PEF is, I think, the first contract up. If PEF negotiates a contract with you and their raises are higher than those that are proposed in the budget right now for MC employees, would you come back and request parity for the MCs with the PEF contract, or will we leave them behind again? Or has there been any discussion about this?
The proposal that's in the state budget is exclusive of what happens with regard to represented employees in the future. It is solely designed to eventually restore salary to salary percentage increase compensation on a prospective basis. If there are other agreements that give raises in future years that are not contemplated by this piece of the budget, we will have to revisit what happens to the MCs.
Well, we would hope that you would revisit that. And finally, as I said, the MCs have been through a lot in the past couple of years, and as everybody has. But in the past, when we budgeted for them, the Division of Budget refused to release the funds to pay those raises. Can we anticipate that they're not going to do that this time, that if there's an agreement on MC raises, that they will actually get that money?
My understanding is that the MCs are scheduled to get their April 1, 2015 raise. That's in current law. And if passed, the July 1, 2015 raise, and those other raises will be paid.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? None?
Senator Kruger.
Just one follow-up question to Diane's questions about the MC raises. Because we've been fighting this out for so many years, what happens to workers who retired or left service between 2009 and today?
The proposal doesn't cover any of those employees.
So they're just, they're locked out because they didn't wait long enough?
It doesn't cover them. You're correct.
Thank you.
Now you're free. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Fran Turner, CSEA, she submitted testimony. I don't think she's going to be here. So we go on to PEF, Susan Kent, President. On deck, Barbara Zarin and Joseph Sano, OMCE. I've never seen them before, so it'd be nice to hear from. Whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Susan Kent. Thank you for letting us provide this testimony. Chairman Farrell, Chairman DeFrancisco, committee members. And Chairman DeFrancisco, I have to tell you that I probably haven't seen all of them, but I have seen a lot of the legislative hearings, and you run a tight ship. Not that you don't, Chairman Farrell, but I can assure you that I am not going to read my testimony.
Great.
I have bullet points. It is detailed, but not as detailed as a testimony. So I hope I'm going to start off on the right foot with you.
Very, very good. And it's actually for the other people that are waiting, not for me.
Okay.
But go ahead.
I understand that. So as I said, I'm Susan Kent. I represent 54,000 professional, scientific, and technical workers that work throughout the state of New York. Our union is a strong union, and we are very proud of the work that our members do. The good news in this year's budget is that our economy is beginning to show signs of recovery, and tax revenue is expected to be more than 6% this fiscal year. In fact, just this past Tuesday, the governor, at an address to our brothers and sisters in labor, touted the strength of the economy in calling for a higher minimum wage. We at PEF absolutely support this, and we applaud the governor and everyone that worked to ensure that the minimum wage will rise. We believe that it could rise a little higher, But this is a good start, and so we want you to know that PEF is in full support of that. However, we believe that there is a drastic difference in the way the governor is handling the money that we do have in the budget when it comes to public services and when it comes to the money that the agencies need to provide these vital services. The governor, in addition, proposes more policies that undermine the civil service system, and he continues to extend privatization at every turn. His budget continues to reward the rich and powerful with millions in corporate welfare, while leaving the most vulnerable, the disabled, those living with mental illness, at the mercy of an underfunded and overwhelmed public and private sector providers where too many fall through the cracks, end up in costlier and less suitable places like emergency rooms and jail cells. I want to talk a little bit about our budget priorities. The first I want to talk about is design build. We are opposed to design build for several reasons. The professional staff employed by New York State agencies is the most competent, is the most cost-effective solution to design needs in this state. Multiple studies have shown that consultant engineers are more costly than in-house engineers. In fact, our research shows that consultant engineers cost about 87% more than in-house engineers. We have been trying for years to get a common-sense legislative bill passed for cost-benefit analysis. This is something the taxpayers need. It's something that makes sense, and I would ask you to please consider that you would look at, in this year's budget, putting in language that would require a cost-benefit analysis before the state goes to consultants to provide what should be provided by public sector. DOT staffing levels are at historic lows. PEF-represented engineering positions have been reduced by almost 19% since 2008 and over 31% since 2000. Design-build legislation would effectively remove these cost-effective employees from the playing field as New York State employees design and inspect but do not build. New York State can save real money and get greater value out of the dwindling transportation dollars by doing more engineering work in-house and decreasing its reliance on costly consultants. Any legislation that increases the state's reliance on costly consultants is misguided and is not in the taxpayers' best interest. While cost is an important factor, design-build introduces more subjectivity into the contract award process, reduces competition, and may decrease objective oversight of projects. New York State's competitive bidding laws have guaranteed taxpayers the best price for public works construction projects and have helped maintain public trust and confidence in the awarding of public work contracts. Design-build represents a shift away from the lowest bid to a more subjective best value. Best value bids have a number of subjective criteria, of which cost is only one element. Design-build reduces competition because fewer companies are capable of performing both the design and build aspects of the contract. Thus, the ability to compete for projects is consolidated in the hands of a few large enterprises. If, in fact, the governor is interested in making sure that more New Yorkers are put to work, the way to do that is to make sure that small businesses can compete and that people can be put back to work, not award these contracts to large mega companies that are often out-of-state companies. That is not going to help New York State's economy. Given these facts, we urge the legislature to cast a critical eye towards design-build. Before this legislation is renewed or expanded, the public and legislature should know if design-build procurement truly provides savings and/or any advantages to the public. We believe that legislature should demand an independent, objective study be performed to review New York's actual experience with design-build procurement, and the results of this study should be made public, and we would suggest at least 6 months prior to any extension or expansion of this legislation. In terms of public health, when it comes to health care, SUNY teaching hospitals are vital resources to the community. Once again, the governor is proposing to cut $18.6 million from SUNY hospitals in this proposed budget. SUNY hospitals are hallmarks of excellence and provide vital medical education, research, and essential health care services to their communities and specialty care services such as burn units, trauma care, and stroke centers. SUNY Downstate in particular serves more than 250,000 patients a year and has 75 community outreach programs and services for a diverse population and a high number of underinsured and uninsured people. Though Governor proposes $700 million for Brooklyn Healthcare, details of the plan are not clear. What is clear in this proposal, it grants sweeping authority to the Commissioner of Health by authorizing the Commissioner to have sole discretion in awarding no-bid contracts and grants funded by the $700 million appropriation. The lack of transparency and detail of this proposal makes it suspect, and we therefore believe it should not be included in the final state budget in its current form. We agree that health care in Brooklyn is changing. We have worked together to adjust to these changes. However, it is vital that Brooklyn continue to be served by SUNY Downstate, which caters to an incredibly diverse, needy community while providing medical education for a new generation of skilled doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals. This is why last year we urged support for the Brooklyn Hospital Safety Net Plan. This proposal, based on the recommendations from Organized Labor's plan to stop the governor's attempt to dismantle SUNY Safety Net hospitals, continues to be a far better approach. We ask you to please make sure that this Brooklyn Safety Net plan is thoroughly investigated and looked into, and also we must state that PEF is vehemently opposed to the governor's proposal to allow private equity investments into New York State's healthcare system. His proposed demonstration program will open the door to privatization of public hospitals and undermine the healthcare system, and we have ample evidence that I believe has been shared with all members of the legislature about where this privatization and private equity has wreaked hazard on the states that have introduced it. In terms of the Roswell Park Cancer Institute, we ask that you not allow the governor to cut $15.5 million from this hospital. It is a hospital of excellence. It is helping people survive and live with cancer and recover from cancer. You helped us last year. You helped the community and the people that need this hospital. And again, we ask you this year, please make sure that the money in the budget is restored to Roswell Park Cancer Institute. In terms of the juvenile justice reform, I want to tell you that yesterday I was at a walkthrough at Green Correctional Facility. I have done many walkthroughs in my 2.5 years as president of PEF, but this one in particular was so disturbing because this prison is a prison that caters to under 21. And face after face after face after face of what look like babies to me are incarcerated. So the governor's plan for the 16 and 17-year-olds to not be imprisoned, we absolutely support. Our professionals at the Office of Children and Family Services have been cut to skeletal levels, as have most all state agencies. So I want to let you know that we absolutely are in support of this initiative, but we need to make sure that we are going to do this thoughtfully and that we are going to do it in a way that these juvenile offenders are taken out of an adult prison, but are put in the care of the state under OCFS, where they can get what they need to turn their lives around while making sure that the community is going to be safe. The legislature helped us previously not to let close to home expand, And that was very important, not because youth should not be near their communities and their families, but because moving youth to non-secure facilities that are run by the private sector has turned out to be something that is not an improvement for their lives and not a safeguard for communities. So I ask you, I implore you, to please make sure that if the legislature so decides that this 16 and 17-year-old initiative should be passed, that you make sure that those juvenile offenders are entrusted to the care of OCFS and that OCFS has the resources they need to do this very, very important job. Because if not, what I saw yesterday, we're just going to continue to see, and our communities are not going to be any safer, and we're not going to be turning around what is a social ill that has been in this state for far, far too long.
Excuse me, is that clock working in front of you there? See that clock?
Oh, it's at 0.
Just want to make sure. Can you sum up if there's another?
I will sum up.
Okay.
I will sum up. I'm sorry, I wasn't looking at it. There are many issues that we believe we have covered with you, and they're in our testimony, but we also oppose taking the teachers out of OCFS, OMH, replacing it with private contractors through BOCES. This is not what these children need. They need the holistic care of people that know how to educate them and also know the issues they're dealing with. There are a whole host of proposals in the governor's plan to erode civil service. We absolutely are against that, and we ask that you stand with us on the issues of not eroding civil service, not privatizing, and not downsizing to the point where people living with mental illness, people that have developmental disabilities, and people that have addictions do not have the care that they need. In conclusion, I want to thank you again for letting me testify, being in support of what Pef has said earlier and ongoing, that we need our government to work for the people, and the way we make that happen is to make sure the agencies have the staff they need and the resources they need to do the job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I checked, and there was no question. It has nothing to do with the quality or testimony. It has to do with the fact that we've been doing this ad nauseum.
Thank you very much.
And some people are getting tired. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Barbara Zarin and Joseph Sano, Office of Organization of Management Confidential Employees. And on deck is Edward Farrell, no relation to the chairman here, Executive
Well, we're not sure.
Director,
I'm waiting for a letter.
Retired Public Employees Association.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Nice to be with you again.
Hello.
Thank you for having us testify.
Could you move the mic just a little closer? Okay,
This
thanks.
better?
Great.
Okay. I just want to reference a couple of comments that were made earlier. Commissioner Boone said that the 80% of the workforce is in the competitive class. If you look at page 4 of our testimony, we have a chart. In the MC group, it's only 57% at this point, and the exempt class is now at 30% of the MC workforce, which is outrageously high and not in the best interest of the public. So, we're here once again. We've talked to you at least 5 years about this MC salary issue, and I thank Senator Savino and Senator Krueger. You've covered some of the points that we were planning to cover. You know that the governor has proposed in his budget a payment plan of the withheld salary increases. The problem is that this is a flawed payment plan. MCs have already waited 6 years for this issue to be satisfactorily addressed. The governor is proposing that they wait another 4 years. So that would mean it would be 10 years before people would actually get the authorized salary increases that were withheld paid back to them. That's just unreasonable. So I'm going to start at the end, which is what we are going to ask you to do. And we thank you for all the support that you have provided in the past 5 or 6 years, the passage of legislation and your support. So here's what MCs really need. We need you to include in each house's budget a resolution for full restoration of the 7.18% salary increase during this fiscal year. We also need, you asked the question about those people who have been retired already, and the administration has taken a very strong position that they should not get paid anything, even though they earned this money, they worked for it, they earned it, and then they left. So we also need a provision for a lump sum payment. Well, let me go back. Full restoration of the 7.8% salary increase during this fiscal year. Provision for a lump sum payment of any outstanding balance of these monies for those who leave state service before payment is completed. A waiver of the retirement system's 10% earnings limitation. A necessary appropriation, because in the governor's plan, the funding for this year's increases will come out of agency budgets that are going to be flat. So they would not be able to accommodate additional funding. And we need a payment plan for those who are already retired so that their pensions can be correctly recalculated. So as I said, 10 years is too long for them to have to wait. The governor proposed the 4-year salary schedule. These salary increases are earned income, and they should be paid. The appropriation is needed to do that. Senator Savino, I think, raised the question of will these raises be withheld in the future? That's a real serious fear for MCs. It's been done before. Hopefully it won't be done, but there's no guarantee that it won't be done. And as you also pointed out, the upcoming negotiations with the unions may produce agreements that will put MCs even further behind again, because in the governor's proposal, it will be 4 more years before this salary schedule is paid out. So the continuing manipulation of the salary schedules is really not a way to do business and results in unintended consequences that are really difficult to fix. And this is something that really needs to be addressed in a more comprehensive manner. So we know that there's another issue here, and that is that in the governor's budget proposal, he says that he wants to exclude those bargaining unit employees who may have received a 3% or a 4% increase in 2009 and 2010, and then were promoted into an MC position. Well, what we have found out is that there are many people who did not get the 3% and or the 4%. And as a matter of fact, there's a payroll bulletin that's been in effect for many years that requires that if a bargaining unit person gets promoted within 1 fiscal year to a position in another unit, if they had gotten a raise in the bargaining unit, that raise has to get backed out of the salary calculation before the promotion salary gets calculated. So they might have gotten the 3%, but then that gets taken away from them if they're promoted into another unit, for example, the MC unit. So budget's idea that people are getting 2 bites at the same apple simply is not correct in practice. Okay, we talked about the employees leaving state service before the full payment. All right, the governor's plan, this was another question, does not address the approximately 3,000 people who have retired since 2009, between 2009 and 2014, who were not paid any of the withheld salary increases. So this affects their pension, it affects their Social Security benefits, it affects the calculation of their sick leave for health insurance payment purposes. It's really a bad deal. This money is considered earned income. It should have been paid then, but since it wasn't, it should certainly be paid now, and their pensions would need to be recalculated to reflect the previously approved funds that were withheld. There are approximately another 3,000 MCs who are eligible to retire in the next several years. Now, this is an issue in terms of managing the state workforce. Unfortunately, it's an issue that's been created by the administration by not paying people when they should have been. So, we need to fix this. We really need to fix this. This is the 6th year that we're talking about this. We really need to fix it now. We appreciate the governor putting this plan in the budget, which is an acknowledgement that the money was earned and needs to be paid. However, waiting 10 years for it to be fixed is wrong. Continuing to manipulate the salary schedules for MCs who are 6% of the workforce is simply wrong. Waiting again to treat MC employees and retirees fairly and properly is wrong. Not promptly paying them their withheld earnings is wrong. So we're asking you to work with us to accelerate this payment schedule into this fiscal year. And we fully acknowledge that would require an appropriation of money because the agencies cannot, in their flat budgets, accommodate all of the money that would be necessary. However, I call to your attention, and you probably have all seen this, but the governor tweeted this message the other day, and he said, let's show that we respect labor. We respect workers, and when they are respected, they do better, and everyone does better. That is the New York way, and let that resonate all across the country. But we certainly agree with that, and we're asking you to do everything that's in your power to help us fix this longstanding problem. Questions?
Thank you very
Comments?
much.
Thank you.
Well, the legislature has shown the support the last couple of
You
years
have.
by passing, and somebody vetoed it, so we'll do our best to help you during this budget season. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Edward Farrell, Executive Director, Retired Public Employees Association, on deck. Dami Harat.
I've been joined, the assembly has been joined by Assemblywoman Fahey. Haven't seen you in a while.
Good afternoon. I'm Ed Farrell. Excuse me. I'm the Executive Director of the Retired Public Employees Association. I commend you for your efforts here and staying through this. I submit my testimony. I will be incredibly brief. I just have a couple of comments to make. There are two issues as it relates to the budget particularly important to retirees. One has to do with the increase in health insurance costs that was passed on to retirees. Back when you approved the CSEA contract back in 2011 on a message of necessity nearly unanimously, in that contract there was a sentence that said, notwithstanding any other provision of law, if the director of the budget and the president of civil service so decided, they could pass on the increases in the percent of premium paid that CSEA accepted in exchange for a no layoff provision to retirees and other employees. Other employees would certainly be Barbara's people, the MCs. But retirees, we found somewhat unprecedented because in the past, when you have increased the rate, percent of premium that retirees in NISHIP pay, it's been prospective. Similar to when you create a new tier, you never went back and put the increase on people who were already retired. So we think you can fix it. The financial situation now is vastly different than it was 4 years ago. And certainly if we have money to create a program to invite out-of-staters to come to New York and pay no taxes, we can certainly do right by people who've spent their entire career working here. And Senator Golden has a bill to do that, co-sponsored by Assemblyman Abadi. So we bring that to your attention. There's just one other issue that I want to raise, and it has to do with Medicare reimbursement. Civil Service has determined that they do not have the statutory authority to reimburse retirees for Medicare, prescription Medicare. So we think that's something that should be rectified. It's their position that since this is a fairly new program, the language currently in law does not cover it, which we think is sort of silly, because if it covers Part A and Part B, it should cover Part D, or whatever other part may come along. So we ask you to please fix that. There's no reason to say that this should not be reimbursed to retirees, because when the state puts retirees in Medicare, the state saves money. So I thank you for the opportunity to present these. I thank you for what you've done in the past in terms of reimbursing, restoring some of the cuts the governor had proposed as it relates to Medicare. Any questions?
Senator Marty Golden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'd like to take a look at that A and B, and if you can stop in our office next week, and we'll talk with or today on the way upstairs. When you're leaving here, we'll sit down and talk with you and see what approaches we can take.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next testifier is Demi Herath, Executive Director, Tompkins and Onondaga County Women's Opportunity Center. And next on deck to get ready is Bonnie Landy from New York State Youth Bill Coalition.
Hello.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you all the senators for giving me the opportunity to come here. I'm Dami Herath. I'm the Executive Director of the Women's Opportunity Center, Onondaga and Tompkins, but I'm representing our whole Displaced Homemaker program in New York State. So I'm talking on behalf of everybody. I know I have an accent. Please don't feel bad to ask questions if you don't understand what I'm saying. We have 14 centers now throughout the state. And we were never in the governor's budget. We were always, you all were kind enough to add us because you all know the value of our services. And we are down to 14 now from 21. And it is sad, last year we got only 1.65 million from the budget. And 7 centers ran the program as long as they can, and they decide to close it. So we are requesting you today at least to put minimum of 250,000 for each center, which will come to about 3.5 million. The value of our services, we serve displaced homemakers. Displaced homemaker traditionally is a woman who took care of the family and have a divorce or separation or widowhood and have to become the breadwinner. But now we serve the women who are in TANF, receiving TANF, and when they are getting out of the welfare system, they need some support and some training to find jobs. The women we serve, last 38 years, we have been in business, and we served over 350,000 women. And last year itself, we served 3,500. And these women are mostly single mothers, and they have small children. And if you think of all your lives, you had a role model. And that's why you're sitting there and I'm sitting here. And these children are growing up without a role model. And my passion actually started with some children I have seen throughout my life there. 26 years I have been working there as the director. One child who came to my center about 6-7 years ago with a mother, he was about 5 years old. He was writing on our walls, and the mother asked him, mother was just looking at it and saying nothing. And my staff came and said, that child won't stop. So I went and I told the child, you cannot write on our walls. He came and hit me. And I looked at the mother and asked, what do you tell him now? He said, what? You said no to a man. He has a right to hit you. I'm like, excuse me? She was shocked that I didn't understand it. So I sent that woman to parenting classes and talked to the child often enough I can. And I told him what I learned from my father. And I heard him saying to my brothers, Your freedom ends at the end of the tip of your fingers. Even at home, you cannot touch anybody without their permission. And he came a few years ago to thank me, and he's back on track now in taking school classes. And our program, that is the invisible results, is our future generation. You all hear now, all these things coming out now, how men are abusing women and how things are going around. Even Obama, the president, talked about 1 out of every 5 women are being abused. We knew that right along. We have women coming, all missing teeth and all bruises. But we get them jobs, we get them self-confidence. Our program is what you all have given us a magic wand. I call it the magic wand that the state gave us. It's not the governor, you all have given us the magical wand. That we create magic, and we need to continue to do these programs. We work with all the nonprofits in local areas and with the DSS and with workforce. We try not to duplicate services, but we have very special program. It's very easy to overlook our program, but you have to remember, this is not for today. You are doing this program for the future too. This is the only way you can reduce the violence among the families. I mean, these women, I came to this country, this is nutshell, came to this country 30 years ago I was a lawyer, I came to do my PhD. I finished my degree, I was going back to make money, I thought. I called my father and asked his blessing. He said, nope, any person can make money. Only a very blessed few people can help people. If you can find one person to help a day, I'll give you permission to stay. I now thank he's gone, but I tell him, I say, I help 5 people, can I sleep now? That is the culture that I grew up with. Money, anybody can make money. But what we do, I cry every day. Happy tears and sad tears. The women's stories that they bring here, I cannot believe it is in this community. It is not fair. The only way you can stop those is giving them the tools to help themselves and be powerful. I see 3 women there. When you think about your parents, think about what you have learned from them. Let the other children, the next generation, learn from their mothers. A working mother is different than a woman. One woman who didn't come to one of our computer classes, I called her. She said she covered her head and went to bed because she couldn't find money to get her son to the doctor. That is the way they learn to solve the problems. 14 centers are together, are working very closely. And another thing is, you all didn't give us, when you established this law 8 years ago, didn't put a cookie cutter program for us. You allow our program to fit to the communities. And I have 2 centers, Onondaga and Tompkins. Both programs are different. We plan it looking at the businesses that in their communities and the needs, and we plan to fit that program to the community. My Ithaca, we have a retail training, and Syracuse, we have we call it boat program for office training. So we plan it, and we do it in a very efficient way. So it's very little money when you think about when I was listening to all the hearings, we are asking very little. And we are giving you 16% back for every dollar you spend. We are putting $16 back. When you count about the women's income and the children that we save and the welfare money you save. This is a win-win situation. Please don't let this program die. It's your responsibility. You have to commit. I went to Senator DeFrancisco's office, and if you don't have enough money, I'm closing the Onondaga County office next year. We can't run programs like that. You have to think of what you are committed to. You all are committed to our program. Please think again and think of your neighbors, think of your mothers and siblings. These women have to be very powerful. I mean, I am here because I have a very powerful parents, and you all are there. Just give a chance to every woman. We have an obligation in this community. I mean, I was listening to all the stories. I'm like, wow, our thing is very simple, but it is the core of this country. You have to be proud of talking to other nations saying, not a single man hurt a woman. Every woman earns living wages. make sure that you will one day be able to say that. I mean, we can't. It's a shameful situation. We have to be all ashamed. So I appreciate, and I know I can count on you, especially Senator DeFrancisco. I'm looking at you, and you have to convince your colleagues, because you know what I do there. I took over the Syracuse Center when you asked me to, when they were going to close, and I go twice a week, traveling back and forth. It's not for money, because of the work we do. So I appreciate, and I appreciate for tolerating my accent, and thank you so much. And if you have any questions.
Thank you for coming. I know we've dealt with this for many years. I don't think there's anything in the governor's budget, if I'm not mistaken. And there wasn't last year either. No?
It has been cutting down little by little.
Okay, and so how do you think it got in the budget last year? People like this trying to get you to keep going, because we are very sincere, you do wonderful work, and we'll do the best we can.
Your best, I trust, will be enough for us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is Bonnie Landy here? You are. Did you bring testimony with you? Okay. Can you give it to one of the gentlemen over here? This is the New York State Youth Build Coalition.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. We appreciate it. My name is Bonnie Landy, and I'm the chair of the New York State Youth Build Coalition, and I'm here with a colleague, Jennifer Lawrence, who is the vice chair, and she represents the Schenectady Youth Build program. Chairman DeFrancisco, Chairman Farrell, and distinguished members of the committees, thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of New York State Youth Build programs and the request for a budget add-on to the fiscal 15-16 executive budget, which was submitted to for your consideration by legislative members from the Senate and the Assembly. Our comments relate to the urgent need for funding to support New York State Youth Build programs. Currently, there are 17 operating programs located in Albany, Buffalo, Brooklyn, South Bronx, Harlem, East Harlem, Jamaica, Queens, Long Island, Manhattan, Kingston, Poughkeepsie, Troy, Rochester, Schenectady, Syracuse, Utica, and White Plains. In addition to these currently operating programs, we know of agencies in Auburn, Ithaca, Jamestown, Newburgh, Olean, Rome, and Yonkers who have applied for Youth Build funding, but to date have been unsuccessful. Youth Build is a comprehensive education, hands-on, skills training community service program with leadership development as part of its core, providing young people who have dropped out of high school an opportunity to transform their lives and become responsible, contributing adults. Youth Build as a program serves the most at-risk people in communities, and it originated in New York State before being expanded nationally. It is an exciting New York State best practice that now serves thousands of young people each year in 273 programs located in 44 states. Remember, it started here, providing a service to high school dropouts that most communities would lack if it were not for Youth Build. Youth Build is an urgent need. As you are aware, in New York State, thousands of young people ages 16 to 24 drop out of school annually. The number remains high and continues to increase. We hear various reasons from students as to why they dropped out, but the common theme is high school just didn't work for me. Youth Build is different. It is a loving, caring environment where I can learn. These young people are disconnected, out of school and out of the workforce, neither employed nor looking for work. Disconnected youth are the youth in the middle. They are the youth with barriers to success because they are no longer in school. They are unprepared for work because they lack skills. They cannot enter the community college system because they're not prepared. The young people that languish in the middle are faced with lack of resources, lack of options, and lack of hope, which leads to high rates of incarceration, reliance on public assistance, and unemployment, costing New York State approximately $500,000 to $2 million over the lifetime of each high school dropout. In New York State, communities where they are located, youth build programs are the only comprehensive option available to young people who are looking for a second chance. Young people who want to work, young people who want to finish school, and who want to be self-sufficient. Why youth build? Youth build programs have provided their services to more than 6,000 young people in New York State and created more than 2,400 units of affordable housing that are sold to low-income homebuyers. Many of the houses are sold between $75,000 to $90,000 to these low-income homebuyers. Youth build programs transform lives while revitalizing the community. Young people attending Youth Build get hands-on skills training, are re-engaged in education as they prepare to take the high school equivalency, and many as they prepare for college. Additionally, they also give back to their community, completing more than 900 hours of service building affordable housing, weatherizing homes, refurbishing parks for statewide disaster relief projects, and providing much-needed senior care at nonprofit nursing homes. Youth Build programs train students for middle-skilled jobs. Youth Build reviews the New York State regional economies and counsels young people to train and work in high-demand jobs. With Youth Build programs located across the state, from New York City to Buffalo, we are already positioned to address regional economic concerns related to youth. Youth Build programs decrease the impact of New York State dropout rates. With a high school equivalency completion rate of 52%, Youth Build programs are narrowing the education attainment gap for out-of-school young people. Youth Build programs are helping young people become self-sustaining taxpayers, productive citizens who are making positive contributions to society. The New York Youth Build funding picture. Youth Build programs in New York State have relied on federal funds available competitively through the U.S. Department of Labor. Due to sharply increased demands nationally for Youth Build funding, coupled with the generally flat-line federal funding, it is likely that only a handful of New York State Youth Build programs will receive U.S. DOL Youth Build funding in 2016. In fact, in 2013 and 2014, only 5 of the New York State-based Youth Build programs obtained federal Youth Build grants, leaving many in jeopardy of closing at the end of 2015. The proposed Youth Build budget add-on will keep programs open and provide us the opportunity to work toward a self-sustaining plan, as well as to begin looking at program expansion into communities where there is a need for Youth Build. We are aware that numerous budget requests are submitted for consideration, and we realize that many of them are legitimate. However, because Youth Build was started in New York State in 1978, we believe Youth Build is a New York State best practice and something you will point to with pride, knowing you are investing in a program with a proven record and viability, as well as a program that continues to demonstrate its value in many communities across the state. We are aware that the governor indicated he does not favor adding any new programs to the budget, and that he will only look favorably on programs that demonstrate a movement in the direction of self-sustainability. We want to assure the governor and you, the distinguished members of the finance committees of the New York State Legislature, that Youth Build does not intend to come back every year seeking funds to add to the budget. The proposed Youth Build add-on for 15-16 will serve to stabilize Youth Build programs and provide us the opportunity to implement our long-term self-sustaining funding strategy. Our long-term strategy includes, but is not limited to, replicating the very successful Youth Build charter model that has worked in California, Massachusetts, Ohio, and Colorado. We have submitted a letter of intent to pursue a statewide charter to serve out-of-school young adults 16 to 24, with the goal that each Youth Build program in New York State will be a satellite site. Engaging local districts on tuition split model that would allow us to engage chronically absent, disengaged young adults in the Youth Build model, thus recapturing state aid and lowering the dropout rates through several increased re-enrollments. An ongoing statewide energy efficiency training and social enterprise system in which Youth Build students are trained and then hired by local programs to provide fee-for-service retrofit work in their local communities. The current pilot project for this initiative is Schenectady, New York, which is creating new jobs in the community with this model and generating income to partially support program costs. In our remaining few minutes, we would like you to hear a story about Emmanuel McCall, a Youth Build graduate from Schenectady. Emmanuel was going to be with us today, but he couldn't get off from work. Emmanuel's story is similar to many of New York State Youth Build graduates who have, after completing Youth Build, have self-sustaining jobs, have earned master's degrees, are owners of construction companies, and directors of Youth Build programs in communities. They are productive, engaged young adults who are contributing to society in a positive way. Jennifer is going to just give you a brief overview and highlight of Emmanuel's story.
Okay, 46 seconds, I got it. So to summarize, Emmanuel came to us from Yonkers, out of hope, out of options. Really, he was released from jail, moved here, and really had every intention of just selling drugs in a new community. Had no idea that there was another chance. All of our young people feel this. They feel at 19, 20 years old, there is no other chance left. So our first, the first thing we have to do is realize and help them realize that there's a new opportunity and that we're not going to give up on them. So when you dig deeper, you find out while young people don't think they have a chance left, they really want to work and they want to give back. So while we offered Emmanuel training, we also offered him opportunity and love. Thank you. I'll go? Oh, okay. So we offered him training, but training alone wouldn't work. We offered him education, but education alone wouldn't work. What we offered was a comprehensive model where multiple opportunities could be recognized. And the other thing about our model is we take a cohort of young people like Emmanuel, commit to them, and don't backfill. So we commit to a group of young people's success from beginning to end. And when he realized there was a commitment, he then began to not just survive, but thrive. And his favorite quote now that I had to read, he would read it to you if he was here, seize the opportunity of a lifetime in the lifetime of an opportunity. And that he's done. And Bonnie told you about all the things our students are doing. Now he's working at Liberty Partnership Program, going to community college. He's appointed actually by the governor on a juvenile justice committee. But that ripple effect is how our communities benefit from Youth Build, and we're asking that you support our request so we can continue this program. Thank you.
Great. He's not only employed now, he's become a philosopher. That's excellent.
That's
amazing.
Many of them do that.
Often.
Any questions? Sounds great. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
And thank you for hanging on all this time.
Thank you.
Jessica Wisniewski, Legislative Director, Citizens Action of New York. And the next speaker, if you'd come down, if you're not already, Adam Prezio, Manager of Government Affairs Center for Disability Rights. And then the featured speaker, the last speaker of all the hearings, is next after that, Sandra Lennon.
I really need some water.
Oh, look.
So thank you.
I understand.
Thank you so much. And scratch the good morning if you have a copy of my written testimony. Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Wisniewski, Legislative and Campaigns Director of Citizen Action of New York. And just a little insert to breathe easy here. Might be the first budget hearing. I'm not actually asking for money from the state budget. What an exciting opportunity. So I'm testifying on behalf of Citizen Action and the Rise Up New York campaign on raising up wages of the 3 million New Yorkers with economy-boosting jobs that will allow working people to meet the basic needs to support their families. Raising wages is one key step the legislature can take to write a budget that works for all New Yorkers, not just the wealthy and well-connected. Because it's clear in our state that boasts the greatest inequality between the wealthiest and the rest of us in the nation, that New York is not working for all of us. Most of us are working harder than ever just to get by. Wages have been stuck in place for decades now. There are still more than 2 New Yorkers looking for work for every job opening. Young adults, even those with a college degree, are having a tough time finding work or taking jobs that don't utilize their education. How will they ever pay their student loans? We worry about how we'll retire. Corporations have taken away our pensions and left us with retirement accounts that go up and down with Wall Street. And that's for those who actually have retirement accounts. Seniors are trying to make do on fixed incomes, worrying whether they'll have enough to live with dignity through their retirement and help their kids and grandkids. But times aren't tough for everyone. The rich are not only getting way richer, they are grabbing a bigger share of the wealth that we all helped to create. It's not like the economy didn't move forward in the past 30 years. If corporations had shared the nation's economic progress fairly with their employees, the average family would be taking home $23,000 more a year. The minimum wage would be more than $18 an hour. But they didn't. Instead, powerful corporations cut our wages and benefits. They shipped jobs overseas. CEOs of big corporations make an average of $30 million a year and bankroll lobbyists and candidates so that they can keep tax rates lower than their secretaries. It does not have to be this way. You can take actions in the state budget to make a New York that works for all of us, starting with the decision to create an economy that works for all of us, not just the wealthy. What powers our prosperity? Working families and the middle class. We are the engines of the economy. It's not the stock market or corporate profits that make the economy work for people. When we have good jobs, we can educate our kids, care for our families, afford health care, shop in our own neighborhoods, and retire in security. We move the economy forward. The first decision is to make work pay with good jobs so we can support and care for our families with dignity. New York needs economy-boosting jobs, not economy-busting jobs. It is impossible to support a family on New York's current minimum wage of $8.75. While the governor's proposal to increase the minimum wage to $10.50 statewide and $11.50 for New York City is a step forward, it remains far too low for a family-supporting wage. The governor's proposal should be a starting point. The legislature should put New York on a path to $14.50 statewide and $15.50 in New York City by 2019, and then adjust it to keep up with the cost of living. The $15.50 wage rate should also cover other high-cost areas of the state, including Nassau, Suffolk, and Westchester counties. Every working parent in New York should get paid enough to care for their kids and set them on toward a great future. From Niagara Falls to Hempstead and every place in between, New York's working families are paid too little to meet the basics, struggling to put food on the table, pay rent, and get to work. This is the daily reality for millions of New Yorkers in the state with the greatest concentration of wealth in the nation. It must end. Raising wages to $14.50 and $15.50 will improve wages for more than 3 million New Yorkers. That's 1 million more workers who will get economy-boosting jobs to build stronger communities than in the governor's proposal. Who are the New Yorkers who will be better able to care and support their families with an increase in the minimum wage? More than half are women. By raising the minimum wage, we'll take a major step toward lowering the gap between what men and women get paid for the same work. Half of New Yorkers who work for the minimum wage are people of color. Raising the minimum wage will help all New Yorkers, including people of color, care and support their families and build strong communities. And the big business lobby likes to say that the minimum wage is for teenagers, but 90% of New Yorkers who will get a raise will be 20 or older. That means too many young adults are stuck at low-wage jobs, even after their teen years. Raising the minimum wage will give young people in New York a boost when they are just getting started, leading to better earnings that will boost our state's economy now and for years to come. They also like to tell us that raising the minimum wage will hurt small businesses and cost jobs. In fact, numerous studies based on real minimum wage increases across the country, not made up economic models, show that increases to the minimum wage will not cause employers to eliminate jobs. Instead, it will increase consumer demand, which will create more jobs. Hardworking New Yorkers will have a little more money to spend at local businesses, and they'll benefit. It's a win-win for everyone. I'm going to skip what the governor said in 2013 and very similarly earlier this year because the rhetoric has really hit the mark this year. I think everybody understands that we need to take action on this. It's really a question of how much. And New Yorkers certainly agree with what we've been hearing, certainly from the state capitol here in Albany. A national poll taken last month had 3 out of 4 of those polled in the Northeast supporting a raise of the minimum wage to $15 over 5 years, which is similar to what we're suggesting. Why? Because it makes sense. Who can get excited about $11 an hour minimum wage? At 15, you can begin to imagine it would enable you to meet basic needs to care for your family. At 15, it will boost the prospects for many more working families. So let's get it done. It's time to replace economy-busting jobs with economy-boosting jobs. Every New York working family should be able to care and support their family, to build a better future for their children. Every working parent should get paid enough to care for their kids and set them off on a good future. This is your fight, and the time is certainly now. Join with workers and your constituents and fight for $15 an hour in the 2015 budget before April 1st. I just wanted to say, it's hard for me, in conclusion, to understand how this couldn't happen. How could this not happen? With no cost to the state budget and simply making corporations of mostly low-wage workers or those corporations who have exceedingly high profits. And so this is a very clear decision that you all get to make to bring 3 million New Yorkers out of poverty, the people who live in your district. And I hope all of you will fight for them. Thank you.
Questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate your energy. Not necessarily agree with your logic, but I definitely understand.
Thank you. And I also have like a bazillion research reports that back up the numbers if you want them.
Okay, thank you. Is Sandra Lennon here? Adam Prezio can come on up now, but is Sandra Lennon here? That's what I thought. I didn't see anyone. As a result, Adam, you are the last speaker of all the speakers over 13 days of testimony. And you should feel honored for that, because we saved the best for last.
Yeah. And you're going for the record for speed.
Center for Disability Rights, Adam Prezio, Manager of Government Affairs.
Thank you, Senator.
Third hearing in this section. This is your third one?
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank
So you
you.
get 5 minutes then.
I'll be very quick, and you already have my written remarks, so I'm not going to go through those, but I'm going to speak about a few things. Thank you, first of all, Senator DeFrancisco, Assemblymember Farrell, and the rest of the committee for this opportunity to speak. I want to talk about living wages for consumer-directed personal attendants. The consumer-directed personal attendant program is a program that allows people with disabilities to live in our communities, in homes, in apartment buildings, to work, to own homes, to live integrated lives. The way it works is that the attendant is employed by and directed by the consumer, the person with the disability, which is why we call it consumer-directed personal attendant. This is an amazing program that is a great success and a great enabler of civil rights of people with disabilities, a great enabler of people with disabilities to live in our communities, as opposed to being forced to be in institutions at great expense to the state. Wages for consumer-directed personal attendants have been stagnant for years, and that's both in Medicaid fee-for-service and in managed care as it's rolling out. Wages for attendants in this particular program are not included in the living wage provisions of other personal attendant and home health aide workers. So both at fee-for-service and at managed care, there isn't the reimbursement for this important program that there is in other places. And the result is that personal attendants are leaving the field. Consumers are having a hard time hiring attendants in, which means that when there's a shortfall in service, when you can't hire somebody to perform these activities of daily living for you, you are at risk of being reinstitutionalized at a cost to the state. So there's been a lot of great talk about raising the minimum wage, and along with raising the minimum wage, the wages for workers in this program have got to be increased, because at some point the minimum wage will exceed the reimbursable wage, or will meet the reimbursable wage, and then it's going to be hard to hire somebody to do this difficult, time-consuming work when they could make the same wage working at a bookstore or a McDonald's. I don't even know if they have bookstores anymore. That's reassuring. So I want to encourage you to, there are sign-on letters on both the Assembly and Senate side defining a living wage for personal attendants in the consumer-directed program, and I encourage you to look at those and to give your support to this vital program. The second thing I want to speak about is the sub-minimum wage, which is a program authorized by Section 14C of the Fair Labor Standards Act, the federal wage law. What a sub-minimum wage is a certified sheltered workshop, and there are certified sheltered workshops here in New York, is allowed to pay people with disabilities less than the minimum wage on the basis of an arbitrary assessment of their productivity relative to someone's idea of what a non-disabled person would be able to do during that, how they would be able to perform that task. It's a form of discrimination that has existed since the 30s, since the beginning of the Fair Labor Standards Act. It keeps people, even people with disabilities who work, it keeps us in poverty. It keeps us in segregated places that are only, that only have people with disabilities, as opposed to integrated, competitive employment that enables us to have a job like anybody else. So we encourage you to end this practice, even though it's allowed by federal law. As you know, the states are allowed to set higher minimum wages than the federal law will allow. So we encourage you to end the practice of sub-minimum wages in sheltered workshops for people with disabilities in New York. Finally, and I'm wrapping up here, the governor's budget includes a number of provisions about employment, generally some tax incentives, expanding the minority and women-owned businesses in state contracting, and we ask you to include people with disabilities in these incentives for hiring, for recruiting, for promoting and retaining, particularly in the state contracting. I'd like you to support including people with disabilities, a discriminated against, protected class with low economic prospects in the definition of minority and women-owned businesses, and to require state contractors to take affirmative steps to recruit, hire, promote, and retain people with disabilities. Thank you very much for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
The sun's still shining.
It was when I came in.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your testimony, and that concludes the final hearing of the 2015 budget hearings. And I'm speaking slowly now because I'm hesitating leaving. I've been here so long that I'm beginning to like it here. So it's time to leave. And lastly, I want to thank the stenographers who took down every word that we just had to listen to. And we need a round of applause for them. The meeting is adjourned.